Chapter 18. The Results of Struggle. The mobile tanker, Azalea, Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Francisco, California. December 14th, 1998. Are we even yet? Jake smiles, still holding Danny in his arms. Danny can only stare up at him in disbelief, unable to say anything for several seconds. She feels like a child in his arms, completely safe and protected. Suddenly, coming to her senses, Danny pushes him in the chest, quickly scrambling out of his arms in embarrassment. Not by a long shot, she too smiles. But, thank you. Jake nods. I'm just glad I made it in time. He glares at the remaining devils. It seems like they're the biggest threats on the ship. Cedrion's pet monkey, Cassidia says with disdain. I'm surprised you had the nerve to show up. The message your buddy tried to deliver got lost in translation, Jake says. Then he lost his head, too. Do not pretend you had anything to do with that. You are far too weak to have been able to kill one of our kind. Jake shrugs. Believe what you want. You'll find out for yourself when the tournament begins. Ha! Kazida laughs. I will accept that challenge. There will be a ceasefire between us until the tournament begins. I want to crush you when your confidence is at its highest. Tell your boys that the rest of the humans are off limits as well, Jake threatens. Kazida laughs. You really think you're in a position to make demands? I am only sparing your life temporarily. Try me, Jake growls. Kazida continues to laugh. I think I like you. I'll see you in the tournament, boy. The devils walk away. The danger is barely abated as the moment the devils vacate the battlefield, the vampire nobles and Norx Barian with his Varkalak soldiers remain focused on the humans. The vampire nobles, draped in regal attire that speaks of centuries of privilege and power, watch the unfolding battle with thinly veiled contempt. Their eyes cold and piercing like shards of ice follow every move of the human combatants, with a mix of disdain and irritation. As the humans demonstrate unexpected skill and resilience on the battlefield, the nobles exchange subtle glances, filled with silent condemnation. Their aristocratic features contort with displeasure, lips curling in disdain at the audacity of these mere mortals to intrude upon their meticulously orchestrated plans to win the tournament. To the vampire nobles, the presence of the humans in their midst is an intolerable affront to their sense of superiority. These creatures of the night, accustomed to centuries of unchallenged dominance, view humanity as little more than insignificant insects scurrying beneath their feet. The nobles' disdain is not merely rooted in arrogance, but also in fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of disruption, fear of anything that threatens to undermine their carefully constructed hierarchy. The humans represent an unpredictable variable in their carefully controlled world, a wild card that threatens to upset the delicate balance of power. With each passing moment, the nobles' irritation grows, fueled by the humans' stubborn refusal to yield to their superiority. Their disdain manifests in subtle gestures, a disdainful curl of the lip, a glance exchanged between peers, or sniffles and snorts of contempt. Norx's frustration simmers beneath his stoic facade. The human presence in his carefully orchestrated plans for victory is an affront to his authority, a disruption that cannot be tolerated. With a growl of impatience, he signals to his Varkalak soldiers, urging them to redouble their efforts and crush the human interference once and for all. His eyes, ablaze with a primal fire, fixate on the human combatants, with a seething hatred that runs deep, rooted in centuries of bitter animosity and bloodshed. For Norix, the disdain he harbors towards humans is not merely a matter of arrogance or superiority. It is a visceral loathing born from the depths of his Lycian heritage. As a therianthrope, he is keenly aware of the centuries-old conflict that has raged between his kind and humanity. A conflict steeped in betrayal, persecution, and unspeakable violence. From the shadows of history, Norx recalls the atrocities committed by human hunters against Therians of all kinds, werewolves, Varkalax, and countless others who dare to defy the boundaries of human understanding. He returns the relentless pursuit, the merciless slaughter, the wanton destruction unleashed upon his kin by those who saw them as nothing more than beasts to be exterminated. The memories of those dark times fuel Norix's hatred, igniting a fiery rage that burns with the intensity of 1,000 suns. To him, the humans are not merely adversaries. They are the architects of his people's suffering, the orchestrators of their downfall, the very embodiment of everything he despises about the world. As he watches the humans defy his authority on the battlefield, Norix's hatred simmers beneath the surface, boiling over with a ferocity that threatens to consume him whole. In their audacity, he sees echoes of the hunters who once sought to eradicate his kind from existence, and his fury knows no bounds. For Norix, the human's presence in the tournament is an insult to everything he holds dear, a reminder of the countless lives lost, the countless souls shattered by humanity's ceaseless cruelty. The first Varkalak swipes at Jake with incredible speed, but the teen's body dodges almost reactively. The creature continues to attack, frustrated that Jake is able to evade every killing blow. Jake recalls his training with Bernard and Alyssa, amazed that his body is able to adapt to fighting these monsters, just like they said it would. With a primal snarl, the Varkalak lunges forward, its claws slashing through the air with deadly intent. Jake reacts with lightning reflexes, sidestepping the attack and delivering a swift counterpunch to the creature's midsection. The Varkalak grunts in pain but quickly recovers, retaliating with a barrage of strikes aimed at Jake's head and torso. Jake ducks and weaves, narrowly avoiding each blow with precise movements honed through rigorous training. Seizing an opening, Jake launches into a series of rapid kicks, targeting the Varkalak's legs and abdomen. The creature staggers under the onslaught, its defenses momentarily weakened by the assaultive blows. But the Varkalak is not so easily defeated. With a guttural growl, it lashes out with renewed ferocity. Jake parries the attacks with deft blocks and counters, each movement executed with flawless precision. The two adversaries continue to exchange blows, locked in a fierce dance of combat. Jake's determination shines through with every strike, his resolve unshakable in the face of the monstrous foe. Sensing an opportunity, Jake feints to the left, then unleashes a powerful roundhouse kick that connects with the Varkalak's jaw. The creature staggers backward, momentarily stunned by the force of the blow. "What are you?" the Varkalak shouts in frustration. Jake delivers a solid knee to the gut, doubling over the creature in pain. "I'm the guy that's going to win this tournament." The Therian beast rises up in fury, attacking with a slash meant to rend Jake in two. The teen leaps back, immediately thrusting forward with a throat punch. The creature chokes and gasps for breath, clawing at his own neck and vein as he suffocates. "What the hell happened to you?" Danny whispers, watching in awe as the Varkalak collapses dead at Jake's feet. "It's only been a few weeks since I last saw you. Your power should still be bound. How have you been able to improve this much?" Jake shrugs, searching for his next opponent. "Lots of push-ups and sit-ups, and drinking plenty of juice." Jake's eyes dart from one Varkalak to the next, noting their positions and movements. The first Varkalak lunges at him with a vicious swipe of its claws. Jake's body snaps sideways in a blur, narrowly evading the attack. He pivots on his heel, using the momentum to his advantage, and counters with a swift, hard kick to the Varkalak's side. The impact is precise, and the Varkalak staggers, its howl of pain cut short as it crumples to the ground. Another Varkalak, enraged by the sight of its fallen comrade, rushes in from Jake's left. This time, Jake anticipates the move, ducking low and rolling to his feet in a seamless motion. As the Varkalak's claws slice through the air where he had been moments before, Jake's fist rockets forward, catching the creature squarely in the jaw. The Varkalak's head snaps back, and it collapses with a dazed growl, too stunned to rise. The remaining Varkalaks hesitate for a split second, exchanging wary glances. One of them, larger and more menacing than the others, decides to test Jake's speed. It charges directly at him, its claws extended for a crushing blow. Jake sidesteps with uncanny quickness, letting the Varkalak sail past him. With a fluid spin, he delivers a powerful elbow strike to the creature's exposed back. The Varkalak crashes into the wall, its feral growl turning into a pained whimper as it slides down to the ground incapacitated. Two Varkalaks remain nearby, their eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. They coordinate their attack, one feigning to the left while the other aims for Jake's right flank. Jake's reflexes are sharp. He ducks the feint and pivots to intercept the second Varkalak. With a rapid sequence of movements, he ducks underneath a sweeping claw, countering with a quick jab to the Varkalak's midsection. The creature crumbles, its breath knocked out, as Jake sidesteps the first Varkalak's retaliatory swipe. The next Varkalak, desperate and enraged, makes a reckless assault, slashing wildly. Jake dances around the attacks, his movements a blur, as he dodges each swipe with ease. He spots an opening when the Varkalak overextends a claw, and with a sharp kick to the side, he sends the creature sprawling. It tries to rise, but Jake follows up with a punch so decisive, landing with a crunching impact, it leaves the Varkalak sprawled and motionless. "Who in the hell is that?" Kasara asks in surprise, as the lifeless form of the Varkalak collapses to the floor. Hendrik shakes his head. "I can only sense human energy, but that cannot be right." Norks roars in anger, ordering more of his soldiers to kill Jake. Varkalaks crowd in all around the teen, to both his and the other human surprise. The Varkalaks have brought with them a massive team to attempt a numbers advantage in the tournament. Jake pivots, blocking the strike of another Varkalak. Their king watches on, astonished that his soldiers are being overpowered by a human teenager. Jake delivers a swift kick to the creature's face, sending it crashing against the wall of the ship's hull. "A single bite or scratch," Norks growls. "Can you weaklings not deliver a single drop of that boy's blood?" The vampires glance over at the Varkalak king after his outburst. "That furball wants to convert the human to become one of his servants," Kasara says. "That is not a bad idea," Hendrik says, baring his fangs. "Making him a vampire would greatly improve our chances in this tournament." Therian Varkalaks surround Jake, spurred on by the words of their king. Jake does not back down, remaining alert and attentive for any slight movement. The first creature lunges, but the flashing of steel intercepts them. The Varkalak howls in agony, its hand severed at the wrists. Blood sprays outward from the wounds like a fountain. "You cannot keep all of the fighting for yourself," Bernat says. "What good are monster hunters if we cannot claim any kills?" Jake smiles. "Be my guest. There are plenty of these creeps to go around." Kasara growls in anger, baring her own fangs. "I recognize those scents." "Mesilvits," Hendrix growls, also angered by their presence. "Hunters." "They do not belong here," Kasara growls. "None of them do." Think of this as an opportunity to eliminate a common enemy. The Mesilvits have been a consistent thorn in the sides of many of our territories. The vampires' bodies grew taut, their once impervious postures now betraying a barely contained agitation. Fingers drummed impatiently against velvet-covered arms, while their lips curled into thin, disdainful lines. Memories of ancient battles and betrayal surged to the forefront of their minds, fueling a deep-sated fury that flared with every movement of their old enemies. Despite the volatile emotions, a layer of detached amusement cloaked their reactions. For them, the skirmish was but a dark spectacle, a mere diversion. Yet their eyes lingered on the Mesilvits with a mix of contempt and curiosity, a cold intrigue that hinted at the strategic calculations simmering beneath their aristocratic exteriors. The sight of the Mesilvits among the humans was both an affront and an opportunity, stirring the vampire nobles into a complex mental dance of historical rage and opportunistic strategizing. Good variety here, Bernard says, cutting down through the center of a Varkalak and pivoting to kick another into the range of Alyssa's blade. Therians, vampire, devils, and demons of all kinds. Alyssa slashes through the spine of the kicked Varkalak. There are creatures on this ship that I do not even recognize. I know, Bernard says, excited as he kills another Varkalak. Isn't this just the best? A Varkalak comes too close to biting Bernard from behind, but a burst of flame magic to the face knocks the creature back. I'm glad you're having fun, but we've lost friends to these things. I would recommend that you take this seriously, Danny shouts, angered. Jake closes his eyes, sharpening his awareness. There's only a handful of beings on this ship that are strong enough to have given someone like Danny and her friends any trouble. He opens his eyes, focusing on the vampire nobles. They might be a problem. He glances over at the Varkalak King Nort's Barian, who continues to grow more furious by the moment. Big Dog is strong too. A lot stronger than any of his pups. Jake then looks over at the remaining devils. But they're by far the biggest threat. We can't take them lightly. A single slip-up, and I'm dead. The devil Gamorka notices Jake is staring at them. Would you like to revoke the ceasefire and have the main event early, child? Jake grins. Main event? You aren't even going to make it to the tournament, you parasite. Parasite? Gamorka growls. What did you call me? I called you a parasite? You even repeated it back to me, Jake says. You take over human bodies, but you don't gain any of their intelligence, do you? Gamorka shakes with anger. You are dead, child. Calm yourself, Kazuya says. We need to save our fighting for once we get to the island. Killing them now gains us nothing. We must focus on going for kills that make us stronger. We have the distinct advantage of knowing the jockey has been enchanted to grant the power of the slain to their killers. We must use that to our advantage, now that Gwalichu has been taken out so early before ever reaching our destination. Gamorka takes a deep breath. When the time comes, I will be the one to kill that kid. The vampire noble of the Scandinavian territory, Gunnar Volkan, slams his battle axe to the floor and begins to crack his neck, ready to join in the battles. His gaze, cold and steely, fixates on the unfolding battles with a mixture of anticipation and simmering rage. As he witnesses the humans and other supernatural creatures clash in combat, a primal fury stirs within Gunnar, awakening the ancient Viking heritage that courses through his veins. The memories of battles long past, of raiding parties and blood-soaked shores, igniting a fire in his black blood, fueling his desire to join the fray. With a thunderous roar that echoes across the ship, Gunnar slams his battle axe to the ground, the sound reverberating like a clap of thunder. His muscles tense with anticipation as he cracks his neck, each deliberate movement a testament to the raw power that lies dormant within him. In that moment, Gunnar is not merely a vampire noble. He is a warrior, a descendant of the fierce Norsemen who once ruled the seas with an iron fist. The thrilled battle courses through his veins, awakening a primal instinct that demands satisfaction, that demands bloodshed. With a savage grin etched upon his lips, Gunnar strides forward, his eyes gleaming with the promise of violence. He cares not for the politics or alliances that govern the affairs of the vampire nobility. In this moment, all that matters is the thrill of combat, the clash of steel, the taste of victory. I don't care which of you it is, Gunnar shouts, pointing his axe at the humans. But one of you is going to fight me right now. Jake takes the first step forward, memories of his days training with the similarly brutish Damon Rodnovich, reminding him of the blood, sweat, and tears he shed to get stronger. Hold on, Bernard says, pushing the teen behind him. You need to save your fight for the island. Remember, our job is to clear the path for you to win. It's up to you to bring home that prize in the name of humanity, kid. But Jake begins to argue. He dislikes anyone fighting on his behalf. Relax, Bernard grins, activating just enough of the monster blood in his veins to elongate his fangs and make the veins in his arms and neck bulge. "I've killed more than my fair share of vampires. One more set of fangs added to the collection will be nothing." Gunnar Vulcan's expression darkens with barely contained fury. The mention of Bernard's prowess in slaying vampires strikes a nerve, igniting a smoldering rage that threatens to consume him. Gunnar's anger is twofold. Firstly, it's a blow to his pride as a vampire noble, his sense of superiority wounded by Bernard's boastful declaration. To hear such arrogance from a mere human, to have his kind's immortality and strength belittled in such a manner is an insult to Gunnar that he cannot abide. Secondly, Bernard's claim dredges up memories of past losses, of comrades fallen at the hands of vampire hunters like him. The wounds of those losses still linger raw and unhealed, a constant reminder of the vulnerability that comes with their immortal existence. In Gunnar's eyes, Bernard's words are not just a challenge, they are a provocation, a blatant disregard for the sanctity of vampire kind and the honor of his fallen brethren. The audacity of Bernard's claim stokes the flames of Gunnar's fury, fueling a burning desire for vengeance that eclipses all rational thought. With a snarl of indignation, Gunnar steps forward to meet Bernard's challenge head-on, his hands curling into fists at his sides. His eyes ablaze with righteous anger bore into Bernard with unbridled intensity, daring the hunter to follow through on his boastful words. Gunnar leaps at Bernard, bringing his mighty axe downward. Bernard hops to the side, the force of the blow nearly knocking him off of his feet. The floor cracks and splinters, breaking through to the levels below. With another blow that strong, the ship may actually begin taking on water. Gunnar pivots, slashing horizontally. Bernard brings his sword up to block, catching the very edge of the impact. Sparks jet from the clashing of steel, and Bernard is pushed back several feet. Gunnar continues his momentum into another swing, coming up with a back slice. Drawing from the Therian power within him, Bernard's arms and legs swell with increased muscle mass, and he blocks the vampire's full swing with his sword. Rather than be knocked aside, the hunter is able to stand his ground and retaliate immediately. Bernard thrusts his sword out repeatedly, stabbing dozens of times in a blur of rapid motion. Gunnar tries to defend with the broadside of his axe, but takes several piercing blows to his shoulders and thighs. Roaring loudly in anger, the vampire noble releases his monstrous true power. Gunnar's skin darkens to a total blackness, and all of his features seem to melt away into shadow. Only piercing red eyes and the white of his fangs remain visible in the rippling darkness, extending amorphous bat-like wings that ripple and drip like they were liquid. The creature expels a dark aura that pushes Bernard backwards. Even with his increased mass, the swordsman is unable to withstand the strength of Gunnar's full power. "I knew there'd be strong enemies once we reached the island, but I never imagined anything like this." Allure strains, shielding her face from the lashing winds of dark energy. "Honestly, I'm afraid we haven't even begun to see the power that's going to be on display in the tournament," Danny whispers, second-guessing every decision she's made up to this point. Under her leadership, she has already lost several team members before ever even reaching their destination. Gunnar slashes with his axe quickly, his speed and strength more than doubled. Bernard chooses evasion rather than attempting to block. Bernard is pushed into pure defensive maneuvering, unable to find an opening to counterattack. Using his axe to hook Bernard's sword, the vampire easily rips the weapon from the man's hands. Bernard immediately crouches beneath a head-level slash and draws an old-fashioned pistol from his hip, firing off a single round into Gunnar's neck. "A bullet?" Gunnar roars with indignation. "That was your counter? We have long outgrown the weak flesh that can be harmed by such simple mechanics." The wound begins to pulsate and sprout vital fluids outward. Gunnar's veins ripple wildly before ripping free from his skin and whipping about like bloody tentacles. The vampire howls in agony, unable to control his own movements. "A silver bullet, soaked in the blood of saints, and consecrated 3 times with holy oils and water, Bernard says, finally able to catch his breath. Gunnar reverts to his more human-looking form, pressing a hand firmly against his own neck. This will not kill me. I will eventually recover and rip you apart, piece by piece. Bernard picks up Gunnar's axe, utilizing the Therian's strength still in his arms. I just needed you to be incapacitated long enough to finish the job. With a mighty swing, Bernard decapitates the ancient Viking warrior with his own weapon. Aginestra, Danny shouts, instinctively burning the vampire's remains. Bernard turns to look at her, surprised. Never can be too careful. Gamorka's anger begins to climb again. It is becoming obvious that the devil may have very little patience for the humans or their interference. It would take nothing to kill the rest of them right now. Why must we take any chances of them reaching the island and formulating a strategy? You were not put in charge of this mission, Kajda argues. If Gwalchu deemed it necessary for at least one human to survive, it must have been for a good reason. Gwalchu got himself killed. We are no longer need to be shackled by his inept leadership. Besides, he grins, his eyes flashing brightly red, I only need to leave one of them alive, right? The vampire noble of Russia, Elena Vladimirova, is engaged in a fast-paced battle of skills against Alyssa. Elena growls, lengthening her claws into sabers, rushing the hunter with a furious storm of attacks. Alyssa parries the strikes with her sword, refusing to give any ground to the vampire. Both fighters increase the speed and ferocity of their attacks. The ground around them is destroyed as the power generated by their attacks and their speed whips up to a violent cyclone that encircles them both. Elena suddenly kicks Alyssa's shin, causing her next swing to miss its mark and allowing the vampire to strike through. Blood explodes out from Alyssa's right shoulder. Elena grins, extending a long, snake-like tongue to lick the fluid splashed upon her face. Alyssa throws her sword into the air, instantly teleporting to its location. Artes saberi, multiforme! She swings her weapon in a circle, creating a mirage of a dozen duplicates. The mirages encircle Elena in combat, keeping the vampire occupied. Alyssa launches the first attack, her blade flashing in the dim light of the ship. Elena counters. With a swift parry, her movements precise and controlled. Sensing an opening, Alyssa executes a series of lightning-fast strikes, aiming to overwhelm her opponent with speed and agility. Elena deflects each blow with ease, her defenses holding strong against the onslaught. With a graceful spin, Alyssa employs her signature technique, creating multiform duplicates that surround Elena from all sides. Their air crackles with energy as the clones spring into action, their blades flashing in unison. Elena reacts with lightning reflexes, meeting each clone with a precise counterattack. She moves with fluid grace, effortlessly deflecting the blows and driving back the clones with calculated precision. Undeterred, Alyssa's clones press the attack from all angles, their movements synchronized in a dizzying display of skill and coordination. Elena fights back with equal ferocity, her blade a blur of motion as she defends against the relentless onslaught. The battle reaches its climax as Alyssa's clones coordinate their attacks with pinpoint accuracy, driving Elena back with a flurry of blows that tests the vampire noble's skill to its limits. Elena fights desperately to hold her ground, her strength waning under the relentless assault. With a final decisive strike, Alyssa's clones converge on Elena from all sides, their blades flashing in a deadly crescendo of violence. All of the duplicates are suddenly impaled, simultaneously by the extension of shadowy black wings, extended outward. Each of Elena's 6 wings terminate in a spear-like protrusion. As Elena unleashes her true power, a surge of dark energy courses through her veins, transforming her into a vision of nightmarish beauty and terror. Her once elegant form distorts and contorts, twisting into a grotesque, monstrous true vampire. Her skin, once pale and flawless, now takes on a sickly pallor mottled with patches of darkened veins that pulse with malevolent energy. Jagged ridges of bone protrude from her shoulders and spine, resembling the twisted remnants of broken wings torn from some ancient, forgotten creature of the night. From her back erupt 6 immense wings as black as the void between the stars. Each wing stretches outward like the outstretched arms of some infernal deity, their tips ending in wickedly sharp spear points that glint with malevolent light. Her eyes, once filled with cold calculation, now burn with an otherworldly fire that pierces the darkness like twin stars in the night sky. They glow with an unholy radiance, their pupils elongated into slits that betray the predatory nature lurking within. Long tendrils of shadow writhe and twist around her form, coiling like serpents as they slither across her skin like living tattoos. They seem to pulse with a life of their own, writhing and wriggling in a macabre dance that speaks of ancient, eldritch power. Her mouth, once painted with a crimson stain of blood, now twists into a predatory grin, filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth that gleam with an unnatural sheen. Each tooth is a deadly weapon honed to perfection by centuries of hunting and feasting on the blood of the living. As Elena extends her wings to their full span, she towers over the battlefield like a dark angel of death, her presence radiating an aura of primal terror that freezes the blood of all who behold her. In that moment, she is not merely a vampire noble, she is a living nightmare incarnate, a creature of darkness and despair, whose very existence defies comprehension. Interesting, Gomorka says, his anger replaced immediately by curiosity. At their full power, it is almost as if they are trying to imitate us, the very divine. Lesser beings can only look upwards for inspiration, Cassidy adds. What on mortal earth is there to strive toward? Elena launches herself forward with frightening speed, her wings slicing through the air with deadly precision. Alyssa narrowly dodges each strike, her movements fluid but strained, as she struggles to keep pace with her formidable opponent. With a guttural snarl, Elena unleashes a torrent of dark energy from her wings, the malevolent force crackling through the air like lightning. Alyssa dives to the side, narrowly avoiding the deadly blast, as it scorches the ground where she stood just moments before. Sensing an opening, Elena closes in with blinding speed, her claws flashing like razors in the dim light of the battlefield. Alyssa's heart pounds in her chest as she dances just out of reach, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she desperately tries to evade the deadly strikes. With each passing moment, Elena's attacks grow more relentless, her monstrous form seeming to blur as she launches a relentless barrage of strikes upon her beleaguered opponent. Alyssa's movements become increasingly frantic as she struggles to keep pace, her muscles burning with exertion as she fights to stay one step ahead. The battlefield becomes a chaotic whirlwind of steel and shadow, the clash of weapons and the crackle of dark energy, filling the air with a deafening roar. Alyssa's senses reel as she fights to maintain her footing, her vision blurred by the assault as she desperately seeks an opportunity to turn the tide. But despite her best efforts, Elena's overwhelming power proves too much for Alyssa to overcome. With a savage roar, she launches a final devastating strike, her claws slashing through the air with lethal intent. Alyssa's defenses crumble beneath the onslaught, and with a thickening thud, she is sent crashing to the ground, her strength spent and her spirit broken. Get up, Bernard shouts. You're the toughest person I've ever known. What are you doing there, laying there, staring at the floor? You're better than that. How many vampires have we killed together? That is all she is. Just one more fang to take down. As Elena looms over her fallen foe, victory gleaming in her eyes, Alyssa struggles to rise, her body battered and bruised from the brutal battle. With one final effort, she summons her remaining strength and lunges forward, her blade flashing in a desperate bid to turn the tide of battle before it's too late. You'll still have some fight left in you, Elena says, grinning. How admirable. I enjoy my meals fighting back, until the very end. It really captures the flavor of despair when they finally realize that they cannot overcome the gap between our strength. Shut up, Alyssa growls, blood running down her face and arms. I can smell the rot of your breath from here. Angered, Elena lunges forward, her wings slicing through the air with lethal precision. Alyssa reacts with lightning reflexes, her blade flashing as she parries the incoming strikes, sparks flying into the air. With a primal roar, Elena's wings lash out like whips, each strike carrying the deadly force of a battering ram. Alyssa dodges and weaves, narrowly avoiding the deadly spear tips as they cut through the air with terrifying speed. Seizing an opening, Alyssa launches a counterattack, her blade flashing as she strikes at Elena's exposed flank. But Elena is quick to react, deflecting the blow with a sweep of her wing and retaliating with a fierce kick that sends Alyssa reeling backward. Undeterred, Alyssa regains her footing and presses the attack, her movements swift and precise as she delivers a flurry of strikes upon her monstrous foe. Elena fights back with equal ferocity, her wings lashing out with relentless fury as she drives Alyssa back with each successive blow. The battlefield becomes a swirling maelstrom of steel and shadow, the clash of weapons echoing like thunder, as Alyssa and Elena engage in a deadly dance of death. Each combatant pushes themselves to their limits, their movements a blur of motion as they seek to gain the upper hand over each other. With a surge of determination, Alyssa summons her remaining strength and launches a daring counterattack. With a swift motion, she dodges past Elena's defenses and delivers a devastating blow to Elena's exposed chest. Elena staggers backward, her monstrous form faltering for the briefest of moments as Alyssa presses the advantage. With a fierce battle cry, she unleashes a barrage of strikes upon her weakened opponent, each blow driving Elena further and further towards the brink of defeat. In a final desperate bid for victory, Elena unleashes a torrent of dark energy, her wings pulsating with malevolent power, as she seeks to overwhelm her opponent with sheer brute force. But Alyssa stands firm, her resolve unbroken, as she meets the onslaught head-on with unwavering determination. Arme de sang, ale, arte sabe, Alyssa says. Her body begins to glow brightly with a mist-like aura. As Elena looms over her, her monstrous form radiating with triumph, Alyssa's eyes narrow with determination. With a swift motion, she plunges her blade into the ground, the metal singing with ancient power as she channels her will into a weapon. With a primal scream, Alyssa draws upon the blood that stains the ground beneath her, infusing her sword with the dark energy that pulses through her veins. The blood gleams with an otherworldly light as it absorbs the power of her own life force, transforming into a weapon of unmatched ferocity. With the newfound strength coursing through her limbs, Alyssa launches herself forward, her blade flashing with deadly intent as she closes in on her foe. Elena's eyes widen in shock as she senses the sudden surge of power emanating from her fallen opponent, but it's too late to stop what comes next. With a thunderous roar, Alyssa unleashes a devastating barrage of strikes upon Elena's monstrous form, each blow fueled by the raw power of her own life force, and the blood spilled upon the ground. Despite Elena's overwhelming strength, Alyssa fights with a ferocity born of desperation, her movements swift and precise as she seeks to exploit her opponent's weaknesses. With each strike, she chips away at Elena's defenses, driving her back with a relentless assault that refuses to be denied. With a final decisive blow, Alyssa's blade finds its mark, piercing through Elena's monstrous form with unerring accuracy. With a deafening roar, Elena staggers backward, her strength waning as she struggles to maintain her footing against the assault. What is with these humans? Cassara whispers in horror. Those two are the most powerful of all the nobles. We can't win this tournament. Calm yourself, Hendrik says. We need to utilize our superior minds and defeat them with strategy. They will not be able to rely on raw strength to carry them to victory. With a guttural cry of anguish, Elena's wings, once bristling with lethal spear tips, begin to crumble to dust, their once formidable form reduced to nothing more than a fleeting memory. As the dust settles and the echoes of battle fade into the air, Elena's body withers and decays before Alyssa's horrified eyes. The once proud vampire noble, Her monstrous form, now reduced to a mere shadow of its former self, staggers backward, her strength rapidly waning as the dark energy that once fueled her power begins to dissipate into the ether. With each passing moment, Elena's body shrinks and shrivels, her skin becoming ashen and pallid as her life force slowly drains away. Her once elegant features contort and distort, twisted by the ravages of decay as her form collapses inward upon itself like a wilting flower. Alyssa watches in calm satisfaction as Elena's body crumbles before her, the once formidable vampire noble reduced to little more than a pile of dust and bones. Her eyes, once filled with defiance and arrogance, now stare blankly into the abyss, their light extinguished forever as the last vestiges of her existence fades into oblivion. With the defeat of the second vampire noble, the other creatures remaining on the ship back away from the humans in fear. None of them want to fight while momentum remains strongly with humanity. They begin to scheme and plot, hoping that Jockey Island will provide them with more opportunity for strategy and ambush. The mages release a collective sigh of relief. "I'm sorry I ever doubted your friend," Allura tells Danny. "He and his vampire hunter squad just saved our asses." "For now," Danny whispers, rubbing her throat. "But can he really back up his threats?" "He seems pretty impressive to me," Allura says, still staring at Jake. "And a lot better looking than I expected. As a friend of yours, I figured he'd be skinny and pale, with dyed hair and black makeup." "We weren't friends in high school," Danny says, sadness in her voice. "Not really. I only pretended to befriend him, so that I could lure him to my old teacher's sick ritual." Allura straightens her clothing, trying to pull the sash tighter to make her figure slimmer. "Then you wouldn't mind if I make a move, would you?" Danny's eyes widen. "What? You've got a thing for Vadis, right? You don't like both of them, do you?" "Well, no, but..." "Good," Allura smiles. "Then Jake is fair game." She walks over to Jake as he stands with the hunters. Bernat crouches over the body of an Agra Bolemu. He lifts the creature's scorpion tail with his sword. "I've never seen one of these things before," he says. "There are many creatures here that I do not recognize," Alyssa cautions. "We must stay close at all times. Wandering alone is too dangerous." Bernat cuts off the stinger and places it into a watertight bag. "Scavenge what you can. There are lots of useful parts lying about." "Gross," Jake groans. "Are you really organ harvesting dead monsters?" "We cannot allow some of these rarities to go to waste. Some of them may possess venom that we may need to develop antidotes for," Bernat replies. "And our abilities come from the fusing of monster and human blood. We may be able to strengthen ourselves with some of these creatures' bodies." Jake turns, seeing Allura approaching. She's the kind of long-haired blonde beauty that wouldn't have given him the time of day in high school. Despite being much different than he was just a year ago, the teen still becomes nervous at the girl's approach. "Hi," Allura says, smiling as widely as she can. "I'm Allura Kever. I'm a close friend of Danny's." "Jake," he replies, shaking her hand. It becomes obvious that Allura isn't used to this gesture as a greeting, due to the confused face she makes. "Are you a magician?" Allura nods. "I'm nowhere near as powerful as Danny. I'm mostly a support mage. If you'd like, I can help enhance you before battle. I know many different enchantments and spells to help boost your stats." "Ah, the white mage of the party," Jake says to himself. "What?" Allura says, barely hearing him. Nothing," Jake laughs. "Just a little bit of affinity for RPGs coming through in an awkward time." "Rocket-propelled grenades?" Alyssa asks, looking up from cutting off the claws of a Varkalak. "Role-playing games," Jake grimaces. "Go back to your butchering, Miss Frankenstein." Jake's comment about Allura being the white mage of the party is a reference to traditional role-playing games, where characters are often categorized into different classes, based on their abilities and specialties. In many RPGs, a white mage is a character who specializes in healing magic using spells and abilities to restore health and vitality to their allies. By calling Allure the White Mage, Jake is acknowledging her role as the healer of Danny's mage friends. He recognizes that her abilities are focused on supporting and sustaining the group during battles, providing essential aid and assistance when they are in need. Additionally, the term White Mage carries a sense of purity and goodness, reflecting Allure's compassionate nature and her dedication to helping others. I'd be glad to help out any way that I can, Allure smiles. We are on the same team, after all. Yeah, Jake says, his voice coming out more like a squeak. Allure laughs, sensing that she's making Jake nervous. As a confident female, she knows his reaction means that she can move in whenever she wants and have him in the palm of her hands. That wasn't too difficult. I would have thought such a badass wouldn't be so awkward with girls. You're cruel, Danny says as Allure returns. Allure shrugs, still smiling. I had to plant my flag while I had the opportunity. We may only have 9 days left to live. I'm gonna have fun while I can. Don't just use him, Danny says. He's actually a pretty sensitive guy. If you get close, he's going to become attached. He just lost someone he cared about. He's extra vulnerable right now. I'm fine with it if it becomes something more serious. If we survive, I promise I'll make an effort. Danny isn't sure how to feel. She knows her feelings for Jake aren't romantic, but she is still protective of him. Maybe he is like a brother she never had, or maybe it is just the guilt of saddling him with the spirit of Yamura. Either way, Danny does not want to see Jake get hurt. Growing up with an alcoholic mother and her various abusive boyfriends, life has never been easy for Danny Livingston. To escape from her pain and emotional attachment to anyone, she had to harden her heart to others. For so long, she refused to allow weaknesses, such as true friendship, into her life. Caring about others only opens one up to vulnerability. Now she is a part of something more. As a resident of Vendelgian and alongside the friends she has made there, she has trained her hardest to become a true mage. Danny has come to realize that for the first time in her life, she has true friends that she cares about and will give anything to protect. I knew you'd be coming to jockey, Danny smiles. You're anything if not predictable. Jake shrugs. The winner of the tournament gets a shiny angel toy as a prize. Don't you remember the trouble you got into the last time you entered a tournament? That was different. Besides, there isn't any room left in my noggin for more beings. I'm just itching for another shot at Hui and Inyana. That's the real story. You're after Hui for what he did to your friend Claire, aren't you? Why shouldn't I be? He slit her throat and made me watch. I'm going to make him suffer slowly before I kill him. Jake can feel the hatred and pain boiling up inside of him, pushing against the magical wall. Without me around to babysit you, you're going to get yourself killed, Danny sighs. She tries to change the subject in order to avoid his emotions from getting out of hand. Without Master Bennett, she isn't sure if she could successfully wall off Jake's emotions again. The monsters on the ship all glare at the humans, too nervous to make a move against them. Let's say we move our party upstairs, Jake asks. I've got a feeling these guys are just waiting for an opening to take each one of us out. That's not a terrible idea, Alyssa says. The deck of the ship offers only one door we need to guard. Thanks, Jake mutters, trying to accept the compliment, even though the way it was worded makes him think Alyssa only expects terrible ideas from him. Don't worry about us, Kazida says. We will keep our end. There will be no sneak attacks in the middle of the night. You will have your full 9 days. Enjoy them while you can.